All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this morning. This is our Billings Chamber Coffee with Candidates event. Just want to get the candidates running for office together with members of our community to hear from them about their platforms, policies, priorities, and make sure that our membership and the community is more informed on who's running for elected office, especially locally. My name is Dan Brooks. I'm the Business Advocacy Director, and I do our lobbying at the Billings Chamber. So whoever emerges victorious in this race will be looking to work with you up in Helena starting in January. So again, thanks everybody for coming. I also want to thank our sponsors. They're listed on the table tents in front of you. CQ Fire and Safety, First Interstate Bank, KLJ Engineering, Western Security Bank, Rocky Mountain College, who is our gracious host of the space today, Phillips 66, Riverstone Health, ExxonMobil, BNSF Railway, Century 21 Hometown Brokers, Julie Seedhouse, and the MSU Billings Foundation. They help to provide the coffee, pastries, refreshments that you're enjoying this morning. So thanks to our sponsors. As far as our format goes, this is a public forum here, not a debate between the candidates. It's really meant for them to communicate with you, the audience. So we've got a number of questions that have been sent out previously to the candidates that they had the opportunity to answer and will get posted online. But we want to give them the chance to answer those questions without any kind of gotcha moments. Really give them a chance to speak to you and let you hear more about them. So I've got a number of scripted questions queued up, but really we also want to give you the time to ask your questions of the candidates too. So after about 30 minutes, and I've made it through a number of mine, we want to open it up for Q&A from the audience. I'll give Jack, will you set a timer for 2 minutes? We'll give each candidate 2 minutes, so we'll make sure that we don't have any rambling on here, and we can be pretty concise. So we will start things off with opening statements from each of the candidates. Just go ahead and take the time here. Tell us a little bit about who you are, your background, the district. What are you hearing on the doors from constituents? Things like that. We'll go ahead and start with Denise.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to inform the community as far as who I am. And can you not hear me? No. Okay. Are these on?
And these are just recording for when we post it online.
Okay.
Yep.
Copy. Again, so my name is Denise Baum. Just thank you for the opportunity to provide information as far as my background, the reasons that I'm running. I'm married. I have a son that attends public schools in Billings. I am very involved in the community. I'm an adult leader in my son's Boy Scout troop. I'm also a merit badge counselor for a variety of different merit badge through the scouting program. I've been a City of Billings resident for the past 25 years, and for the past 19 years, I have proudly served the City of Billings as a law enforcement officer with the Billings Police Department. The last 14 of that, I have been assigned a detective in the Investigations Division, and I primarily investigate crimes against children. I am one of the original and longest-serving members of the Yellowstone Valley Child Advocacy Center multidisciplinary team. I helped develop the protocols, the guidelines for our Child Advocacy Center, which led us to our national accreditation in 2014, and we just went through the re-accreditation process in 2019. Phenomenal protocol as far as how child victims of physical and sexual abuse are interviewed and how their cases proceed through the judicial system. I also sit on a state board called FICMAR, which is Fetal Infant Child Maternal Mother Review Board. It's a state mandated board which we review child, infant, maternal mother deaths, and we're looking for preventability strategies, safe sleep, things of that nature. So I'm also involved in that avenue.
Okay, thank you. Thomas, introductory statement, anything you'd like to let the audience and viewers know about?
Sure. Well, I'm Thomas Madigan. Originally raised for the first 15 years of my life in Glendive. I come from a law enforcement family. When the railroad went south, we moved to Billings. I went to senior high school, and then I went into the military. I'm a Gulf War era veteran, U.S. Coast Guard. Did drug enforcement for the Coast Guard, did maritime law enforcement, fisheries patrols in Oregon and in Florida. Came back here. I was married, got divorced. We're still friends. Well, I moved away when I moved back here after I got out of the military. I moved away from Billings. I always loved Billings, you know. Downtown Billings was always a jewel, I always thought. I always loved it. And coming from Glendive, you know. But I moved away in 2008 and built a trucking company in Milwaukee. Was married again. But unfortunately, that one didn't last either. So I moved back to Montana. And when I moved back to Montana after being gone for a decade, it was like, what happened to my town? The crime. You know, police officers used to be respected. The crime is up. The filth is up. People aren't being helped, whether it be mental or drug abuse. You know, there's got to be an action. There's got to be a direction for these people to go. I have ideas for that. So I decided to run for office because I want to work for we the people. I don't consider myself a politician. I consider myself a statesman. So when I sit in front of all you folks, to me, it's like a job interview. That's all it is. That's all it is. Sometimes you get the job, sometimes you don't, but I'm going to try my hardest. And if I do win the election and I don't do what I tell you I'm going to do, then fire me. Plain and simple.
All right. Well, thank you. And I forgot to mention, we will run this kind of like a fantasy football snake draft. So we start with Denise over to Thomas, and we'll start with Thomas, go back to Denise, and back and forth as we go through the questions here. So we'll start out here. Question number, let me just go ahead and skip the why. I think we heard a little bit about that from you both there. And also thank you both for your service. We greatly appreciate that. So as far as, let's get a little bit into the weeds here. Policy priorities. What are your top 3 policy priorities that you hope to address in the next legislative cycle? Yes, sir.
Me?
Yes, sir.
Well, first and foremost, education, tax reform, and public safety.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Baum?
So my top 3 priorities are adequately and properly funding the Department of Public Health and Human Services. DPHHS is a mega division and takes up 42% of House Bill 2 appropriations. It provides critical services for seniors, those with disabilities, early childhood intervention programs, provides needed public assistance for child care, health care. The multitude of programs is absolutely astounding. As a member of the Yellowstone Valley Child Advocacy Center, Department of Public Health and Human Services has been continually on the chopping block with budget cuts. That affects the most vulnerable in our community. Services for child victims, multitude. In 2017, when they had the largest cut, that devastated our local child advocacy center. We were a one-house building that provided essential services. It was a place for CPS to do parental monitoring, supervision of their children. That's where we conducted our child forensic interviews. We had mental health services. We had assistance to adolescent teens, runaways. That budget cut in 2017 devastated us. It relocated us, and we were displaced. Mental health is a huge, huge issue. It affects everything within the community, and we have to properly fund it and get it under control, and provide the needed treatment to the community. So that is my top absolute priority. Also with that, getting the mental health services that the public schools need. Teachers need to be able to teach. If the OPI's recent proposal to leave it on the whim of the local government whether or not they want to take away the ratio of counselors to the student body.
That's 2 minutes. Yeah, you want to go ahead and list off a third, just
Sure.
so folks know?
My third one is I'm an absolute avid outdoorswoman, hunt, fish, access to public lands, conservation, things to keep our waterways clean, and our air.
Okay.
Air pollution.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next.
We're both on the same track on that one.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
agree with you on that one.
Oh, awesome.
Excellent. All right. Next question. We'll start with you, Denise. In a recent survey of our members, an overwhelming portion of respondents, 88.6%, agreed or strongly agreed with the statement. Generally, control and authority should be returned to local communities as the government closest and most responsive to the people. If you agree, do you have ideas for returning control and authority to local governments? Or if you disagree, why do you think it's important for Helena to maintain that control?
So in general, I agree with returning local control to the community. Control between state and local is a balancing act. And this last legislative session completely obliterated any type of balance between local and state control. Things such as stripping away our county health officers' ability to provide proper protocol for public safety, and removing any enforcement capabilities that they would have had to institute those policies to keep our community safe. Stripping away of a local gas tax for Missoula. One of the only counties that actually had used that, but again, corporate interest, Noon Petroleum was the one that stood up in support of the House bill that removes a local government from instituting the local gas tax. Let's see, bill dealing with the inclusionary zoning, okay? That stripped, House Bill 259 stripped away our ability to provide affordable housing, which means a certain number of housing products, those developments had to provide affordable housing. By stripping that away and allowing local governments to use an inclusionary zoning, oh gosh, excuse me, I cannot talk anymore, coffee, took a tool out of the toolbox in providing affordable housing. So things... 2
minutes. Thank you. I don't see any waters here, and I apologize that we don't have some waters.
I would really love some water.
If nothing else, the opportunity to spill it
Thanks,
all over
Jack.
the table would
I know,
be...
right?
I appreciate it. All right, Mr. Madigan, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, I will.
Okay. In a recent survey of our members, an overwhelming portion of respondents, 88.6%, agreed or strongly agreed with the statement. Generally, control and authority should be returned to local communities as the government closest and most responsive to the people. If you agree, do you have any ideas for returning control and authority to local governments? Or if you disagree, why do you think it's important for Helena to maintain that control?
Well, one thing I disagree of is I believe Helena should have control of all school districts and everything has to do with education in the state of Montana, to create a standardization of curriculums. I believe that local superintendents should not even really be there. I believe that the school boards should have a liaison that deals with the Montana State Department of Education and the Superintendent of Public Instruction in Helena. That way, her office, state funds, can oversee all of that. And maybe we could return more of the money that is being spent in these school districts to where it belongs, is back into the school, back to the students and to the teachers. And create a program of transparency so anybody in the public can see exactly where the school boards, exactly where the state is, so we don't have issues in Billings, you know, where everybody is fighting against the school board. Take it to your congressman, take it to Helena where it belongs. Let them do it right there instead of their intervention here.
Okay, thank you. And we'll start again with you here. And we've heard a little bit on this topic. So if you'd like to take this opportunity and maybe dive in a little deeper to the weeds or the substance, if you'd like. Question is, Billings voters passed a second safety levy in 2021, primarily providing additional personnel to our police and fire departments. However, much work remains regarding issues at the jail, sober living houses, the Office of Public Defender, and other areas of public safety. What do you hope to work on or see passed at the legislature to address safety issues in our community?
Well, first and foremost, I see they did hire quite a few more officers, and she may agree with me, I would hope so. I don't believe the officers are having the tools that they need to completely do their job. I would like more community reaction, more community involvement with the police officers. Throughout the country, police officers have been victimized lately. They've been defunded here, they've been refunded here. I think that with the state budget, I mean, we have a lot of excess money. I think we should bring that out to the economy, give it to the people, revamp detention facilities, open up drug rehab facilities, because there's a lot of people in these jails that don't belong in there with hardened criminals just because they have a drug problem. Get them out, use that money to rehabilitate people that are on drugs and alcohol. Don't stick them in there with a bunch of criminals, because they are not criminals, even though they may have created the criminal act. I am a little soft on that. But police need to be able to do something with the people they arrest instead of releasing them into the public. And that also goes towards our county attorneys and our city attorneys. We need to have a little bit more forcefulness and more adherence to the law by them, because, you know, police officers get pretty frustrated when they spend the time to put a criminal in jail and that criminal gets out of jail with little to no bail. Just a repeat offend. I mean, I don't know if you would agree with me, but it frustrates police officers.
Thank you. Same question. Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I have an understanding of the question, sir. Yes, Mr. Madigan, I do agree on some of the points that you made, specifically the overcrowding of the jail.
I appreciate that.
And repeat offenders. So as a law enforcement officer, we are daily problem solvers. You get sent to a disturbance, you mediate the problem, you move on to the next call. You deal with someone that commits a violent felony, an assault, a homicide. Again, you identify the suspect, you move forward with the case, it goes into the judicial system. Okay. My training and experience as a public servant is that I want to look at more long-term solutions versus the immediate short-term arrest, identify, put them in jail. Yes, we do need to expand the jail in order to take problem repeaters, offenders, and keep them off the street. That's a public safety concern, absolutely. Okay, but along with that, we need to develop these community partnerships, intervention. Okay, and in that point, I agree with you, sir, as far as we need to make drug treatment accessible. Okay, drug addictions are driving crime in this community, 110%. Okay, so we need to develop those community partnerships, get them into drug treatment. Okay, intervention, prevention. Okay, we have drug courts, run that through. Let's try to get the treatment. Let's try to fix the long-term problem to avoid the continual revolving door of recidivism. Okay? And then the last part of that would be enforcement. Sometimes treatment and everything, other mediation does not work. Then at that point, when they've been given that opportunity, then the enforcement needs to take part.
All right. Thank you. Next question, coming back to you. Global crises have highlighted the need to expand domestic energy production and transition to renewable and other energy sources. What can Montana do to ensure we have access to affordable and reliable energy while planning for and transitioning to a less carbon-reliant energy future?
Well, currently they are building the Clearwater Wind Project, actually kind of in your neighborhood, out in eastern Montana. And I think going to wind, solar, hydro energy is pointing us in the right direction. With this new wind farm out east, the energy rights were purchased by Puget Sound out in Washington State. So yes, those local communities are going to benefit from property, the land payments, and tax payments. However, all that energy is going out of state. So I understand in succeeding phases that some of that energy will power Montana communities. But I think as we're building these, I think Montana should be recipient of that energy source also, whether percentage-wise or whatever, without everything being sent out of state. Let's see. I know they had also been looking at micro and modular nuclear reactors as a possible option. They're smaller reactors. It's something that would be able to power as an emergency source for a local community, but you're still dealing with how do you deal with the radioactive discharge or completely lost my train of thought. The waste. How do you store it safely? So that's still something I think that should be researched. But I think definitely the move towards enhancing and furthering our wind farms, our solar energy, and other non-carbon options is an absolute must.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Madigan, would you like me to repeat?
Yeah, just touch on it. Yeah.
You bet.
I was like really digging what she's saying.
You bet.
I'm going to go sit over there now.
Just as an aside, I do appreciate the cordialness here. When we looked at voting patterns of the last legislative session, despite it even being probably one of the more contentious legislative sessions, there was still far more agreement amongst legislators than disagreement. So I appreciate you showing that off today.
Two heads are better than one unless they're on the same neck.
All right. Question number 2 here. Global crises have highlighted the need to expand domestic energy production and transition to renewable and other energy sources. What can Montana do to ensure we have access to affordable and reliable energy while planning for and transitioning to a less carbon-reliant energy future?
Okay. Well, before I moved back to Montana, I went to work for a little company out in North Dakota called Missouri Basin Energy, and I worked in the Bakken. And, well, even though I support renewable and cleaner energy, the way it's being the way fossil fuels are being attacked right now is you just can't flip the switch. And they really want to flip the switch. But they tried that in the European Union, and that did not work. So moving towards solar and moving towards wind power, that's fine. But like, I agree with her. Any of the wind power that is in this state, Montana should receive the benefits of that first. What's left over, whatever you want to do. Pay the leases to Puget Sound, whatever you want to do. But I think Montanans should benefit from that. You know, moving away from carbon-based energy is gonna happen. It's gonna happen either way. But the ramifications of just flipping that switch, you know, I don't know how they're going to power all sorts of tanks and airplanes and this and that. And so starting out in the baby step phase of solar and wind, that's fine. But that stuff still needs petroleum products to work. Still needs grease. Still needs this. Still needs that. When you have snowstorms and windstorms, I watched 4 of those towers blow over outside of Stillwater last year. I've seen blades come off them. I've seen eagles run into them and get hit.
All right, thank you. We are at our 30-minute mark, halfway through the program. So I do want to open it up for questions from the audience. If anybody has a burning question right off the bat. And just as a reminder, your questions will need to be formatted for both candidates, not simply take an issue with one of the candidates' answers. Yes. And I'll, for the sake of it, because we forgot our extra microphone, try to also make it simple enough that I can repeat it to the microphone for those, so those who view it online later will understand the question. Okay, so the question is, and prefaced with the lack of funding for Office of Public Defender, what are your opinions on the matter, and how might you help solve that challenge? And I think we'll start with you, sir.
Okay. Looking into like the safety mill levy, I'm not sure, I'll be honest, I'm not sure what this last one's percentages were, but I believe that the courts and the public defender's office and all the judicial areas within Yellowstone County and Billings need to be looked at by the legislature and even set up their own budget increase. We have the money in the state. Public safety is a big thing. It's a big thing for everybody. And I support any kind of spending on public safety because one life is too many. So.
Thank you. Ms. Baum?
Yes. Actually, I believe they did look at this last budget, increasing funding to Public Defender's Office, but it has to be more. With the public mill safety levy, we increased personnel, full-time employees to code enforcement, to the court systems, the county attorney's office, obviously officers. We're hiring civilian CSOs, civilian service officers, okay? Along with that, so as caseloads increase and the county attorney's office gets overloaded, yes, you also have to fund and bolster the other end of the scale. Absolutely critical to ensure that people get a fair shake. They deserve proper representation. And yes, part of the problem is they need to look at wage to get good quality applicants in there, along with funding the office to allow them the resource to provide defense services to their clients. They also need to provide a wage at which that will draw good quality applicants. So along with funding for resources, they also need to look at improving the wage for public defenders. They've got a tough job also.
They do.
Thank you. Yes. Good question. All right, we have $1 billion surplus at the moment. How would you allocate that money? We'll start with Ms. Baum.
Well, we've already proposed putting money towards building affordable housing. Also funding childcare programs. It's crucial to be able to provide child care to get people back into the workforce, particularly women, okay? Also provide property tax relief to some extent, across the board to everybody. Affordable housing. Businesses cannot expand their business base if they don't have skilled, educated workforce. If they don't have a workforce and they don't have a place that they can afford to live in, they're not going to be able to expand and continue moving forward. Affordable housing, addressing the mental health and drug addictions are going to what is going to move an economy forward. If you have a solid workforce, if they have housing, if they have dealt with their addictions, if they have child care available to them so they get into the workforce, those are all critical. That's where we should be putting our efforts for the budget surplus. Let's get people back to work. Let's get people workforce housing. Let's bring in good quality applicants and give them a place that they can afford to live.
Thank you. Mr. Madigan.
Repeat that question.
Yep, you bet. So we've heard recently in the media, in the papers, that our state has a $1 billion surplus. How would you allocate that money to address the challenges that we face in Montana?
Well, first and foremost, I would gather information from all law enforcement agencies throughout the state of Montana, Billings, Missoula, up and down, east and west. They put out, at least I get weekly crime updates from the Sheriff's Department and the Billings Police Department. And you can go online and make sure that's all public information. You can go to Missoula and then get a panel together and speak with the public, hold forums with the public, get the public's idea. The fact remains is that even though we'd be elected officials, we are elected by you. You guys make the call. Give it to us. When you figure out what crime statistics from 10 years ago to present, what municipality deserves it most? Does the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Department deserve more than the Billings Police Department? Because there's so many parameters. Why no?
Sorry.
I'm just making an example. There's so many parameters that if you get a group of people together, because that is your money. It's not the state's money, it's your money. And I want people to be safe. And public safety is where it begins.
All right, thank you. You brought up property tax relief, and I would be remiss if at a chamber event we didn't talk about the local option authority. Recently there was a ballot initiative that, in our opinion, fortunately failed. That would have capped property taxes. However, it really highlights this property tax fatigue amongst Montana citizens. So my question is, allowing residents to vote on a local option sales tax targeted at tourists and including property tax relief could alleviate the pressure on property owners without the negative consequences of capping property taxes. If you support a local option authority, what provisions would you like to see in the proposal? If not, how would you address rising property taxes without reducing essential services like public safety? I think we'll start with you, Mr. Madigan.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I am actually for about a 3% sales tax. Not on necessities, not on like clothing and stuff like that. I'm talking about a 3%. I would like to decrease or even help cap a portion of property tax, but I also want to drop tax on your income. Also, in the state of Montana, and that's to cover a lot of other things. Montana is one of the few states left that doesn't have a veterans tax. That is, veterans don't pay tax. They don't pay state tax. But I think the tax should be dispersed throughout the state where it needs to go. Why should everybody around Glacier get all that tax up there? Billings isn't getting any of that. Why should they get it from Yellowstone, all the surrounding communities? Other communities outside those vacation spots create a lot of tourism. That sales tax will add way more revenue to Montana. And then in turn, hopefully that goes back to Montanans.
Thank you. Ms. Baum,
So,
you want me to repeat it?
yeah, yes, please.
You bet. I'll leave out my opinionated preface there. We'll just go with the question here. Allowing residents to vote on a local option sales tax targeted at tourists and including property tax relief could alleviate the pressure on property owners without the negative consequences of capping property taxes. If you support a local option authority, what provisions would you like to see in the proposal? If not, how would you address rising property taxes without reducing essential services like public safety?
Okay. So as far as a local option tax, I would be in support of that. We actually already have that. We have a 3% local option tax as far as the marijuana. The City of Billings is expected to get between $350,000 and $400,000 from the as their portion of the marijuana taxes. I believe what Mr. Madigan was referring to was resort areas such as Whitefish, West Yellowstone. We have resort communities and resort areas, and that's the only place you can in fact those types or implement those types of taxes are populations that are 155,000 persons. Billings doesn't have that option. Okay, so I would like to see. City Council still has not decided what they're going to do with their portion of the marijuana tax. I would love to see more infrastructures, our parks, our trails, the amenities that draw people to this community, building on our public transportation, making things accessible to our workforce, to our areas, to enjoy the downtown, to be able to get around and spend their money in the local community. If you were to cap property taxes fund our public schools, our public safety. I just do not see that as being positive in the long run for the local community.
Thank you. Any other burning questions? Please.
Proposals are coming from? Is that too complicated?
Yeah, let me see if I've got it.
Good luck with that one.
Within about the last 5 years here, what would you say has been the most influential program, community activity that you've been involved with that has probably both provided a great benefit to the community and helped influence what's led to your positions here today and your platform that you're running on? We'll start with you, Ms. Baum.
Boy, I guess for me, it is just the daily continual interaction with the local community. It's involved investigating my cases and just a constant interaction. In the course of 30 years of law enforcement, I've interviewed thousands and thousands of people, various demographic backgrounds, and a lot of times I see people on their worst day. And being able to understand and most importantly listen to what their concerns are, listen to all sides of the story, and provide a solution, whether it's going forward with further investigation of the case, things of that nature. And I hope I'm not missing the point of the question. Just that daily interaction. Also, my involvement in the community in my off time as far as being involved with the Boy Scouts. We do a ton of community service projects. We've done packing groceries at the food bank. We've done downtown litter pickup. We've done conservation projects for Zoo Montana. Just a multitude of things. And it so engages the Scouts, and it is growing our future leaders. They learn a lot about how local government works. That's one of their merit badges, citizenship in the community, citizenship in the nation. And I feel that my service potentially on the legislature will help further that understanding as a merit badge counselor for Scouts and helping these young leaders move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Madigan.
Well, what I've noticed is, and I try to get with the younger generations and at least the people younger than me, and because they really are the future, and they really the ones that are working downtown and living downtown and enjoying downtown life, they're the ones that I want to talk to, because I'm here in transportation, easier way to get around town, you know. I see that. I saw how they worked it in large cities like Milwaukee, bubbler bike systems, you know, ways to get around town which are not internal combustion engines. So, I mean, I'm there. They're talking about cleaning up downtown, even with the chamber and a lot of the other places, you know, revitalizing downtown. That's what I'm getting from the younger generation, because God knows right now we're not leaving them on a good path. So I want to, like, you know, in the legislature, I want to make downtown Billings the jewel that it used to be, because that's where the heart is. That's where the schools are, the colleges, and the hospitals. And I got plans for all that. So,
Thank you. All right. We've talked a little bit about this housing issue. Montana is currently experiencing a significant housing shortage, making it difficult for people to find affordable housing and businesses to recruit new skilled workforce. What can the legislature do to incentivize building more housing, streamlining the process, and/or making it easier to embrace new housing technologies? And we'll start with you, Mr. Madigan.
okay. Actually, I've been talking to engineers, more green, I guess, if you would, contractors, even with digital media people. There are new techniques, you know, 3D image printing through architects. They can build houses that have, you know, no carbon footprint. So they receive federal grants and they receive federally protected insurance, which on contractors, they pay a lot for that. The legislature needs to work with the inner cities like Billings and Missoula and Kalispell, because that's why they start fanning away from Billings, because it's easier to deal with the county than it is to deal with the city, because things are higher. We have a lot of infrastructure here in Billings that, you know, we could turn into affordable housing. They got plans for the hospital when they build a new one. That could be condos. Get with architects and designers. Give them tax incentives to move those new technologies into buildings, into our downtown area. And give them the tax incentives to build more housing. You know?
Ms. Baum?
I'm sorry. Can you please repeat?
You
sir?
betcha. Montana is currently experiencing a significant housing shortage, making it difficult for people to find affordable housing and businesses to recruit new skilled workforce. What can the legislature do to incentivize building more housing, streamline the process, and/or make it easier to embrace new housing technologies?
So I think repealing House Bill 259, which took away that tool in the toolbox to ensure that a certain percentage of new housing developments provided affordable housing. That would be one issue. You were asking other,
So, what can the legislature do to incentivize building more housing, streamline the process, and/or make it easier to embrace new housing technologies?
okay, as far as embracing new housing technologies, further extend the energy tax credits to help build greener housing. We have the option of looking at all our vacant lots in Billings and do infill building, okay, and higher density. They have a project currently rebuilding, putting affordable housing, workforce housing into the old women's shelter in First Avenue North. It's going to be the Lincoln Apartments. That's going to provide approximately 30 affordable living workforce apartments, and they're going to rent approximately from $500 to $700 in the downtown area. That's going to be a boost because you're going to have a close workforce available for these businesses to hire. So I think we need to look at what we have available, such as infill building, and prioritize and take advantage of those.
Thank you. All right, final question here. Kind of a concluding remarks question here. Respectfully, why should voters choose you over your opponent? And this will be kind of a final statement opportunity. We'll start with you, Ms. Baum.
Well, as I've said, I've been a Billings resident for 25 years. I've seen a lot of changes in the city, along with the expansive growth, the West End expansion, the rise in crime. Very involved within the community, and also the heartbeat of the community in my daily activities in my job. I take, again, I want to take the concerns of the local community to the state. I'm used to being a voice for the people within the justice system and bringing their voice forward. And I think I can do that with my knowledge, my skills, and be a voice for the community at the state level. I take this very seriously. I've done a multitude of things to prepare myself to serve in the legislature. I've done a number of training sessions, that Montana budget legislative session they provided. I've done those trainings. I've met with business leaders, Billings Association of Realtors, Montana Wine Beer Distributors Association. Any opportunity that's been afforded to candidates, I have attended the training to better prepare myself to understand issues in those industries that they're trying to deal with, and to see how we can work together to come with solutions.
Thank you. Mr. Madigan, same question. Why should voters choose you?
Well, I believe voters should choose me because not only with the 32 years in transportation, supply chain, and logistics, federal law enforcement, drug interdiction, energy, construction, everything like that, I feel I can bring my well-rounded to the legislature as a statesman. And I believe cutting taxes without cutting social programs is a key thing to do with bringing renewable energy forward. There's got to be a balance. I want to work with legislators. I don't want to fight with them. I want to work with them. And I think by working together, we can create a better society for the people that actually put us in office.
Thank you. All right, would you please help me in thanking our candidates for coming today? Appreciate your time. Thanks everybody for joining us, and thanks again to our sponsors who helped to make our Coffee with
Thanks,
Candidates events possible. We hope that you'll join us for our future events. Thanks, and have a great day.